Order. We have an agenda. Anybody have anything to add? Yes?
I'm sorry I didn't open my agenda yet, but I'd like to add possibly a letter to be sent to TIR for the conditions of the snow removal and that in the Pubnico area during the last storm, and just to see if they can have a look at their policies again, or if they can do something to help the people of that area out a little bit.
Okay, and that would be, I guess, for decision, which is 10I.
10I, okay.
Thank you.
I've had a letter of, that would be more in correspondence. It's a letter from NDP wanting to set up a meeting, the leader of their borough. So we just deal with it as a decision, C, or we could put it here, sure, decision, your call.
Under J?
J. NDP. Okay, with those additions, motion to approve.
So move.
Second. Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded, carried. Any conflict of interest from anybody? Hearing none, we'll continue. The next item is a presentation, and we have a presentation from Miguel with Rising Tide Project. And Miguel, if you want to go to the podium, the mic, and you're on.
All right, thanks to Council for allowing me to be here today. What I'm presenting is a 12-month community branding project called Rising Tide. For those who may not know me, I'm the co-founder of a Canadian matte art company called SaltRec. Since 2016, SaltRec has grown from its humble beginnings to becoming a recognizable Canadian-wide brand. In fact, it has sold over 5,000 products, with 99% of our reviews being 5-star. So building a solid brand is a team effort. That's one thing I've learned. So today, we come here as a team. Nobody has the skills to do what we're planning to do alone. So I'm going to introduce the team. Jeff Claremont, who is right here. Can't say enough about this man. Smart, efficient, resourceful. His most in-depth knowledge is in design. Jeff comes with vast experience and expertise that he gained managing a team of web designers at web.com. What I like the most about Jeff is simple. He's amazing to work with. He's skilled and versatile. He's been an instrumental part in the SaltRec brand over 3 years, and we are very lucky to have this level of accessible talent right here in this region. Mike Smith behind me right here, most of you know him. Huge team player with amazing video and storytelling skills. He also has access to top-notch video equipment through Ignite Labs in Yarmouth. I've had the pleasure of working with him lately, and I know he is the best person at video that we can access locally. Mike will make a huge impact on the Argyle brand as video becomes increasingly important to convey the message. Mike is making a name for himself, and he has already worked for the town of Yarmouth and the municipality of Argyle. So by leveraging the team's skills and experience of building brands online, I am confident we will see positive return on investment for the municipality of Argyle. The reality is the Rising Tide project, if accepted by council, will plant the seed for substantial long-term dividends for the municipality of Argyle. So what's the importance of a strong community brand? I've been lucky enough to been in contact with Kentville. Lindsay Young, who is the Community Development Coordinator. Lindsay has been a big part in the rebranding for the town of Kentville and continues to take an active role in the brand. Here's what she had to say. Community branding is so very important for municipalities because it lays the groundwork for organized and thoughtfully planned out cohesive marketing. Community branding, when done well, always involves extensive community stakeholder input. Your brand should be a true representation visually and practically of what people can expect when they come to town. A strong and true community brand will also drive more and better collaboration and generate buy-in from stakeholders like the business community, not-for-profits, and others. Your community brand can help get everyone on the same page, pulling in the same direction towards achieving a common goal. In Kentville, we completed our community branding project in 2015 and have been dedicated to the rollout since then. Since beginning the rollout phase, Kentville has welcomed over 25 new businesses to town, seen an unmatched level of collaboration from businesses and property owners, and our brand recognition across the province is strong. As a staff person responsible for marketing our brand, I can confidently say that the creation of our community brand has made our marketing campaigns more consistent, recognizable, and effective. So thank you, Lindsay. So where are we today? So today's reality is that people are researching and making decisions online. Because of this, we are competing with other areas of Nova Scotia. They are making decisions on travel, on where to raise a family, where to retire, and where to start a business. Fun fact, Nova Scotia had its fastest population increase this year, the biggest population growth since 1972. One of the reasons for this growth that interests me the most was the net interprovincial migration of 1,100 residents to Nova Scotia. People are moving to Nova Scotia. We have to get in on this action. The point I want to make here is we are competing. The first way to capture attention of new residents or businesses is our online brand presence. That's where it starts. So how do we present ourselves online? Now, I understand this is a very new concept to municipalities. Historically, this was not even on our radar. Both my grandfather and great-grandfather were councillors here at one time. Never would they have imagined a situation where they can go on the offense by marketing themselves so easily to Canada and even the world. They didn't have the same reach to attract new residents. You see, I love where we are today. This is a huge opportunity for us to lead and be bold. The municipalities who have the courage to act now will be rewarded for their vision and investment. Others will be playing catch up. We know that at the present, the municipality of Argyll is doing great. Economically, we are at one of the best positions in history. However, the population trend shows signs of decline. So if we're on the brink of decline, what are we going to do about it? The Rising Tide project is a start. It points us in the right direction. If you ask me a simple question, Miguel, what would you do if you could do only one thing for us with extreme focus? What would give us the most results? The answer would be simple. I would optimize the municipality's website. We've already started by doing a website analysis for you guys, and this document alone is a good start for you guys. So I'm going to go into some details just so you know what we're talking about. What would I do? I would optimize for mobile. 66% of people are shopping, browsing, etc. on their mobile phones. I haven't seen one municipality which focused primarily on the mobile experience. This will be a big win for even our current residents using the website. Number 2, I develop a strong and true value proposition. This is the headline of the brand, the spirit of the brand, and must capture people's attention within seconds. This is the single most important thing we can do for building the Argyll brand. It is the hook, it is the foundation. Number 3, I'd organize the website in clear categories. My favorite is visit Argyll, moving to Argyll, and opening a business in Argyll. See how we put our money makers front row, center, above the fold. So people are probably asking, what is above the fold? The fold is what you see when you first arrive on a website. The word comes from the fold of a newspaper. So essentially, this is the important headlines that draw you in. Number 4, marketing what we already have. The website should leverage all the past investments you've already made. Argyle has loads of quality content, video, etc. that is mostly tucked away and not getting much attention. Now, we've scanned several municipal and town websites in Nova Scotia, so don't feel bad. Most of them, like ours, are very poorly designed. Kentville.ca is an example of a good website, but we can do better. See, the problem is nobody is trained at optimizing websites. It's a very rare skill. Many people can build the websites, but they can't optimize the websites. It's new to the world. Now, of course, the website is only one essential part of the Rising Tide project. It is our first priority to tackle. Building the brand takes more than a website. However, I felt it's important to share some details on this so we can have a glimpse of what's going on in our mind, below the iceberg, if you will. I know this is obviously scary for some people here. It's a new world. So let's move on to another question. What can we do as a municipality to better our financial future or position? The big 5 in my mind are, we can attract new business, we can attract newcomers, we can increase tourism, and we can support our current residents and our business community. Last but not least, number 5, we can increase our tax rate. Looking at the big 5, Rising Tide directly supports 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's make sure we don't get to the 5th option of having to increase our tax rate. Before my conclusion, I'd like to share a couple testimonials on the qualities of the Rising Tide team. Angela Green, President of the Yarmouth and Area Chamber of Commerce. The team at Rising Tide combines talent, marketing, and IT skills, as well as an obvious enthusiasm and passion for our community that has the potential to showcase our region to the world. Another from Doug Jones, founder of Ignite Labs in Yarmouth. I have had the pleasure of working with Jeff, Mike, and Miguel on various projects in the past. They bring a variety of marketing and branding skill sets to the table. The combination of their skills in the digital marketing space are unique in this region, and the scope of the work that can be accomplished with their team is outstanding. Their vision for the region and their ambition to make real change here makes them the ideal partners to market our unique region of the province. I highly recommend working with their team to develop a comprehensive approach to digital marketing and community branding. So what does the municipality of Argyle get from this? Rising Tide is not the be-all and end-all. The branding effort must continue past the 12-month project that I'm proposing. You can see Kentville for the working example. Number 2, we don't have all the answers today. We must work on this together. It takes a lot of thought to build a brand. Now, Rising Tide is going to deliver the best and most optimized municipal website in the province of Nova Scotia, both on desktop and mobile. Number 2, the beginning of a strong brand we can all pull together on. Number 3, professional videos and content to support our brand message. And number 4, a huge nod of confidence to Argyle residents, the business community, and all stakeholders. They should hear this message from you, Argyle. We are investing in ourselves, in our future, and in yours. We got your back. The old saying, a rising tide, is usually viewed as a good thing. It lifts all ships. That's great. But what happens if our anchor line is set too tight? As the tide rises, the anchor catches bottom. The municipality's boat begins to tip, and eventually the boat begins to take on water. We can get in trouble unless we act first. By anticipating the rising tide, we let more slack into our ropes, which lets us rise together. So my final quote is, In 20 years from now, you'll be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the ones you did do. So throw off the bow lines, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, discover. Mark Twain. Thank you.
Questions?
Has the
Yeah.
staff been in contact, have you been,
Yes, we've
this is
received,
the first we've heard, so.
of course, yeah, so we've received some preliminary information on the project, and obviously, I think Miguel and his team were very eager to come and present to council as you know, coming from them directly, clearly is far more
Yeah,
interesting and useful than coming from us. But yeah, we do have some basic information around the project, and we can certainly delve into the details of what Miguel has just presented. Yeah.
so at some point you'll be coming back to us on, like, basically we're concerned with costs and what's gonna be entailed with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always a couple of wrinkles associated with engaging a company sole source. Like, so if the interest is to pursue more information, I think that's like step one. Like, okay, let's get a little bit more information to try to understand. You know, obviously, I don't want to speak for Rising Tide, but like understand what they're looking to offer the municipality. I know it's a lot of information and new, and certainly from the staff's perspective, we can provide you the information that we've received, and also comparative information, like what does this look like? Like, it's one thing to just see a sticker price, but it's another thing to look at, okay, well, what does this actually get, how does this actually happen in other communities, and what is the market rate for this type of service delivery? And so those things ought to really come into your consideration as well, not just one number.
One more.
Yes.
You mentioned Kentville would be our best place to look, for example.
It's a good example, yep.
Okay,
Strong example, yep.
that's it for me.
Councillor Surratt?
Couple of things. Number one, just a comment. I do like your presentation.
Thank you.
I really like the idea. This is where we're gonna move forward. I honestly believe that. Number two, if you look at our website and you compared it to others, 1 to 10, where would we send 1 being the best, 10 being the worst?
One's the best, so Kentville's the best in this province.
Yeah.
Better in Halifax, of what I've seen. And we would be 7 or 8. Yeah. But most people are, I haven't really seen.
No,
Yeah, it's not,
Not a question there. I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying.
yeah,
That's kind of where I thought.
yeah, most people
where
are
I
in that range, yeah.
So, I mean, if we did decide to go ahead with this, there would be a tendering process, or we couldn't just award the contract?
It
How
would
would
be
that-
extremely likely that we would have to do some sort of procurement.
I never
Yes.
thought of that.
Whether it's a request for decision, expression of interest, or a request for proposal,
Yeah.
you can do it different ways, but it likely has to have some public flavor.
Yeah.
Now, there are some provisions that allow you to consider local delivery of services in a different way than you would non-local. And this wasn't part of your question, but there, you know, I think staff would agree that the assessment of the website is probably 7 or 8, but there ought to be, you know, council ought to be made aware that the website is in process of being revamped. So by considering the services that will be provided by Rising Tide, we'd have to look at, okay, where are we on that process, which is well underway, in fact, considerably underway. It might actually result in a website, there might be like a 2-phase situation where, okay, well, you gotta finish what you started, And then there might be if this is of interest to you, more likely than not, the optimization and the other services that Rising Tide is offering may or may not be included in the new website, but the new website won't be a 7. It would likely be a 5 or 4 or 3, depending
That
on.
way?
Yeah, I mean, it will be, websites get old and technologies change. And so, for sure, our website is in desperate need of reset. Yeah.
And
I'm
our,
not faulting anyone.
No, and I just wanted to make sure you understood that we agree
Okay.
with
We do.
Rising Tide's assessment that we need, and that's why it's one of our projects.
and the revamping that's taking place now is done in-house.
What we do is, it is led internally by Scott, our IT professional. However, we engage with AMA.
Okay.
AMA has
Yes.
collectively, they hire a person that, leads the technical changes.
Okay.
What Scott's role would be content and advisory.
Okay.
So a lot of the technical changes that would be made are made by this person, but they're influenced very much by our staff.
Okay. Any other, yes, go ahead.
How would you gauge if this went forward, how would you gauge where we're at? Would you give us these etapes, steps, or certain phases that we
Phases
reach?
of the project?
Yes.
In the proposal there, I don't know if you had to read through the proposal, but there's deliverables, so that's kind of how I would work it. The deliverables would come throughout the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very
That was the information that we got.
It was a while back. I
A
think
while
you
back.
might have had it a while.
I've
Might have
had
been
it,
a while.
yes, a while back, yes.
It may have been a while ago.
Yes.
It wasn't attached to the agenda.
No, it wasn't
It
attached.
makes you
Yeah.
No,
go
it wasn't
before, but I
attached.
forget.
I knew that we had seen, yes.
And the financial information's in there as well. So,
Yes, there
yeah.
was. Any other questions?
I am looking at Kent Road, it's easy to follow and,
It's pretty good.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. It was a good presentation, like Deputy Warden said.
Thank you.
And it's something that we're gonna have to discuss as a council and look, see where we go with this. Okay, the next item, adoption of minutes, and we have the regular council of December 10th.
So moved.
Move.
Before we, I guess seconded, but I see there was only 7 of us, and there's one motion, 7 in favor, 7-0, 7-0, and then it jumps to 8 in favor, 8-0, so I don't know where the 8th person came from, but just noticed it, I guess, probably
Yeah.
because 8's my favorite number. How's that?
We'll make that, we'll make those changes
Yes.
if, yeah.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded, carried. Business arising, your dangerous and unsightly premises policy. Is that one ready now?
That might be up to you, the council.
Because there's been changes
Yes.
and there's been, yes,
If you'll
yes, please.
If you'll permit me, I'll go through some of the changes. So first of all, so you've given staff a number of pieces of advice in order to change this policy over time. And one of the other pieces we did was, of course, we went to our solicitor, Solicitor Woodrow, and he had made suggestions regarding what the MGA allows us to do and what it does not. So some of our wording was not appropriate for the policy, and so that has subsequently been changed. So there's no mention here of a loan. It's a repayment plan for taxes owed. So we are allowed to do that, but we're not allowed to consider it a loan. If it was a loan, there's very few things that you can actually do that with. One is the water lending loan that you are, as a council, endorsing. So the repayment plan, so the changes are in blue. There are other changes that we have not discussed at the last meeting that I'd like to raise. One is, and this was directly in response to some feedback we received from some of the residents that are going through this process right now. And one of which was that there might be an incentive that could work to encourage the taxpayer to clean their own property. As you may be aware, you're likely aware, the solid waste park has a policy that you cannot bring more than 220 kilograms of C&D or other garbage per week. And so if somebody's actively cleaning a very messy situation, very quickly, that doesn't make any sense to them from a financial perspective. And so if we're looking to encourage people to clean their own situation, under certain circumstances, the CAO would be permitted to allow a waiver of the tipping fee, meaning we would pay for it as opposed to the resident. So there's 3 or 4 things that would drive the CAO in that decision. So this policy will push that decision to staff, to the CAO in particular. And so one would be that the resident is cleaning and is showing an effort to clean and has brought some material to the landfill already. And the material on site, in the opinion of the administrator, which in this case would be Hunt's, is well in excess of 220 kilograms, which is often the case. And then obviously in the opinion of the administrator, the property would be more efficiently cleaned if they could do it and just continuously bring the stuff to the landfill. So under those circumstances, the CAO might allow that incentive to happen. What is the benefit of that? You don't have to get involved from a municipal perspective, from a legal perspective, to clean it yourself if they're able to do it themselves. So it really, and then of course what you will also see is that our intent is to incent a taxpayer to clean their own property before we get involved from a legal perspective. So the wording has been added to include that provision. The second portion of the policy that I'll just quickly go through is simply this, is that that the TLC program has 2 elements to it. One is a repayment plan that says you're not charging the person 16% interest on a cleanup. You are making an arrangement to reduce the interest from 16 to 4 in those circumstances in order to encourage a repayment schedule. There are rules associated with that schedule. They have to make their payments. There is a rebate portion to this, but they would have to qualify for that, and there are rules in the policy that outline what would make somebody qualify or disqualify. So for instance, if there is a cleanup and a year down the road there is still a mess, then they would not be entitled to a refund. If there's a cleanup and they've made 2 missed payments in the 12 months, in the first 12 months of the repayment period, they would not be entitled to the refund. So it's encouraging a regular and systematic payment as well as a ongoing cleanup or maintenance of the property. And if that is happening, then there is a refund or rebate entitlement. And the rebate entitlement, there is a calculation, there's a transitional calculation, but the one for all those subsequent to December 31st would be the lower of 3 numbers. One would be 100% of the tipping fees. The second would be 20% of the total costs, meaning, look, we'll help you with 20%, but 80% is your responsibility as a resident. And the last is $2,000, which means it would never be more than that. It would never be more than $2,000 for any given cleanup. Now, $2,000 at 20% represents a $10,000 cleanup, and we have seen that. We've seen that, particularly in a demolition. We have seen that easily. Unsightly, it's unlikely to get that high. If it gets that high, it was quite unsightly. And so, but we have seen it come very close to that number. So there is a transition period that has changed. Initially it was September and now it's December, nice and clean on the calendar year end. And that would represent the major changes to the policy. Now, the only other thing I would say about this policy is it is your original policy, meaning all the rules associated with doing, taking legal action to clean property on behalf of and having the rights to do so under the MGA, that's all in this policy too. It's just that part wasn't amended, so I'm not actually getting into a great detail associated with that. So all the legal powers remain. This is a more gentle approach to situations in order to entice the taxpayer to work with us to clean before it gets too big of a problem. And if you remember, the reason why we're incentivizing that is that we have had situations where we've cleaned and had demolitions of properties that we were not able to collect any anything at all, and we end up in a situation where a property goes on tax sale, and it's all unfortunately messier that way. So that would be my short, long description.
Okay, so that, most of these changes come from discussions within council as well as legal advice.
Yes, the only exception to that was the first piece where I said that there's some, a little bit more wording on incentivizing.
Right.
That the CAO has the discretion to
Exactly.
waive tipping fees.
Exactly.
Or to even, there was another piece of that where if there's a small job that needed to happen, that perhaps staff could go in for a small period of time for assisting somebody for a smaller cleanup, but it would not include a large cleanup using our staff.
Okay. So what is the wish of council? Do you want to keep this and make a decision, look at it further, or are we ready for a motion to accept this?
I feel it's been kicked around quite a bit, and I feel that it's been adjusted to my
Okay.
liking anyhow of the other councillors, so I'll certainly make a motion that we accept the dangerous and unsightly premises policy as presented tonight,
Okay,
with the amendments.
move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any more discussion on it? Yes?
The only thing I'd like to ask, and I brought it up here one time before, about that 220 kilograms per household per week. I know when some people are doing a job in their homes, doing some major renovations or whatever, it doesn't take long to get a big truckload of garbage or, debris, materials, wood materials and all that. And I was asked before if there would be a way that each household could get like maybe a one visit per year, and maybe a waiver of the fee for demolition purposes or whatever, because a lot of times I see this is for private residents and that, but a lot of times you can take drives down back roads and you will see a load or two of demolition material where people have just thrown it out on the side of the road. And the only thing I'm looking at here, we're giving an incentive to a person to clean up their property that's already let it go. And that, but the person that wants to keep their property clean, that there's no incentive for them to haul their garbage in to the landfill site. I just don't know if it can be looked at some point in time, and maybe it don't even belong in this, for what we're into right now, but.
Really doesn't belong in here. I
Okay,
know what you're saying.
okay,
On this
but
motion,
I-
that's my opinion anyhow.
And
But
that's
that
all
could be
right,
spoke about on something else.
but
which
I
is a
brought
great
it up
point.
here once before, actually, and I'd mentioned it to you, because you were on the,
Waste part.
waste part, so.
But you're right, I mean, this one here deals with the unsightly, so that would be an item that we could deal with under another topic, I would say. That would be topic in itself.
So I mean, if council agrees with Councillor Digson's comment, and it's legit, it's a legitimate comment, so but the question really should be brought to the solid waste, because the policy belongs to the Yarmouth County Solid Waste Management Authority, and because it's dealing with all residents, it's probably better to raise it at that table, to bring that topic in. I think I'm pretty sure that the policies aren't the same for Yarmouth County and for Yarmouth Municipality Town and Municipality of Argyle. So it is possible to have a different policy addressing the residents of Argyle. But I think the place to make that request is at the Solid Waste Authority.
I disagree with that. I'll tell you why. Why? Because, now, this is the opinion that I've got, and Richard, maybe help me on this. We administer, I say we, the waste part, administers what the municipalities want. So it's not a policy we have, we adhere to what your regulations are. So the 220, when people come in, we're adhering to your request, to the municipality of Argyle, municipality of Yarmouth, and the town of Yarmouth. We don't have a policy that says Argyle 220, this one 200, that one 150. So we're adhering to what the policy of the municipality actually is. That is my understanding, because we do not have a policy that says people can bring something in for 200 kilograms, because then we'd be saying, okay, Argyle, you're gonna pay this because we just decided to let it come in. So this comes from the units themselves.
Yeah, I think, I think that, if I look at the solid waste bylaw that we have in the municipality of Argyle, and I have recently because we're looking at the RFP for collection services,
Yeah.
I didn't see anywhere where it mentions that number. So, we can do some, I mean, it's up to council. If council wants to do some investigation, alls you need to do is either bring it to another, council meeting or make a motion, asking for that. I mean, we will certainly investigate it on our end from our bylaws perspectives. And I agree with you, the solid waste park would likely do whatever council would wish. But I think we would probably ask Waste Check and the Waste Authority to give us some advice as to whether or not that is,
I'll check that out then to be sure in our policies and that.
Yeah.
Just in case, you know what? That's how I've always interpreted as, but I don't know if Richard.
Yeah, we have a meeting in the morning.
Yeah, we have a meeting tomorrow morning, so it's a perfect time to bring it up there.
Question?
Yeah.
Okay, question call, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded? Carried. Councillors report. We can start, whoever wants to start.
Been quiet over the holidays, I
Been
guess. so-
quiet.
Yeah, thank you.
Same here.
Same there.
Yeah, same here, it's been quiet over the holidays, been working on, as Councillor Digby mentioned, as always, some issues with highways and Westport, been kind of compiling a list of deficiencies, because it seems like maybe they're kind of adding up, whether people aren't calling as much or whatnot, or, so it's a discussion I want to have with TIR. Also, we had a meeting with the Liaison Oversight Committee of the REN, speaking with, selecting staff report about, making amendments to the upcoming renegotiations of the intermunicipal agreement, slight changes we want to make there, mainly, I think, on the amount of time that the funding agreement with the province lasts, for various reasons that I can't get into tonight, but if you want to contact me about that, you certainly can. That's about it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sir.
The only thing I got, like the rest, I mean, quiet over the holidays, and just at the bridge in Morris Island, it's just for information, I guess, it's they've been working on that, and they've got one side all built up, and they're working on the other side, so hopefully, if the weather stays like it is, we'll see something coming up a little quicker.
Thank you.
No official council business in the last month, other than dealing with your constituents
Yes,
and few social functions that
right.
aren't worthy of mentioning.
Same there.
I attended a splash pad meeting last night in Yarmouth, and they're looking to come make a presentation to council in the near future.
Okay.
The only issue I have is, I've noticed, in the community, a smell I'm suspecting is coming from the old lobster pound again. Seems like every time we try something, it backfires, but anyway, I'll keep you guys updated, how's that?
Okay. Thank you. My report is attached, and again, mine was very short this time. It was really very quiet since our last meeting through December and holidays. Staff report. We'll go to RCL.
thank you. Just a couple of things that I'll highlight. It's a 18-page report or whatever, 16. So just the admin building. So right now the tender package is in final draft. Our project manager is seeking legal advice, or we've engaged legal counsel to assist with the final potential changes to the tender to make sure that the municipality is well positioned. That tender could come out as quickly as the 16th or 17th, meaning in days, depending on how quickly we can finish the work or any subsequent changes that would occur as a consequence of the work. I would say that next week is more realistic, and so we will be issuing obviously that will be placed on the tendering site, and we'll be doing our own press releases, et cetera, indicating to our residents that this is happening. Following that, or I guess at the same time, we're gonna be issuing a major update on the project. We've gone a little radio silent because we've been waiting for a lot of information, so it was like nothing to report, nothing to report. So we'll be putting out some information to our residents on our social media, as well as our website, and also obviously to the media as well. And we are planning a Facebook Live conversation, and it will be between myself and Danny. Some preset questions, as it will be next Thursday.
Yes, I think
A week from this Thursday coming. So there'll be some free advertising about that. So that'll just allow people to ask questions on the fly. So it'll be on January, where the 14, 16 plus 7 is 24. So January 24th, Thursday at 6 p.m. is the date and time that we will do that. So it's time. 23rd. 23rd? Okay, I did the math. All right, so the 23rd. It happens. I'm not sure of the date of the closing just yet. We'll get that information as quickly as we have it, and obviously that can be influenced by a number of things during the tendering process. Hopefully the package is understandable and clear and simpler than it was in the first round, and that will allow for contractors to price accurately and et cetera. So we have a request for proposal in early draft for the potential sale and development of lots in the Tuscan property. You will have something by the committee of the whole. I'm not sure it'll be final, but you will have something to look at and ask questions about. So we will be developing that and pushing hard to get that for January committee of the whole. We will have a long period of time to accept the proposals, because while there are some people that may be aware that this opportunity is occurring for affordable and alternative housing, there may be other developers that could equally be interested in a portion of that property. There is quite a bit of property back there, so we don't want to make it short. We want to leave it open for a little bit.
What would you consider a long period of time? Just wondering.
I wouldn't leave it out for 2 weeks, for instance.
Oh.
Like I would look at probably 30 to 45 days.
By all means.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'll have, I think, a little bit more clarity and information for council at the next meeting. Rural internet, we're going to hopefully receive information this month from Develop Nova Scotia. They are the ones responsible for the request for proposal, and we anxiously await what comes out of that, and what our role might be in improving rural broadband in the area. The other item I would mention quickly, the land use bylaw and municipal planning strategy. We've received a draft public engagement document, so that you will receive prior to your January meeting, and then at the end of January we expect to see an amended document for the actual land use and municipal planning strategy, and we're on schedule to have that finalized or approved in the month of March. The other work, I would suggest, if you had any questions or comments or concerns about the work that is ongoing in the report, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. There are, well, I guess before I go there, I would say that we are currently doing a funding application for, we're focusing on the East Pubnico water utility. We've received word that there might be an opportunity for funding for that through ACOA, so it's an application. Obviously the application has to be accepted by ACOA, but it does provide us a real opportunity to address the well issues that are end of life on the Middle East, the Willett Road in Middle East Pubnico, as well as consider other additional equipment and changes that can occur. So there's a little bit of opportunity there financially in ACOA because they couldn't release any money during the election period. So you only have so much money for so many months. So we hope to take advantage of their funding. Hipson as well is on our radar because of the additional costs associated with it. We'll be reaching out to ACOA as well. Unlikely that we would have two funding opportunities, but we will be pursuing that.
Any questions? Councillor Dickon?
Thank you. One thing I did notice was the dewatering truck, the sewer truck in the municipality, or for the Pubnico area, I guess is where it was first designed for. I guess it's time, how long have we had that truck so far?
Approximately 1 3/4 years.
Just about 2 years, at a cost of how much?
The original cost was, I'm gonna say about 390,000.
Okay, so, and the company has tried and tried and tried, I guess, to make it work,
They have.
and it's just not proving out for what it was intended for. It's as simple as that. As far as I'm concerned, it's a lot of money to be sitting on. So I think somebody has to soon, being as a sewer truck, that old saying, or get off the pot. You know, because it's just a lot of money to be held up. Last year, all winter long, it was in the building in storage. This winter again, it's in the building in storage. And it's not doing what it was supposed to do. We thought by now we would be rid of the geotubes, I believe they're called, in Pubnico. We still have the geotubes, and we may have to look at an alternative solution for that and see what we can do with that truck.
If it's the will of, I can answer some of
Yes.
that. So first of all, the company is, you're quite right, has tried and tried and tried certain things to try to fix the problem. The problem is certainly with the truck. The truck has some issues around how it deals with that. There's also potentially issues with the flocculant that we're using, which is essentially a chemical that separates the water from the solid. And there may in fact be an issue with the way that the wastewater is being treated currently in the system. We have made direct contact with the expert that was hired or brought in by the company, who's independent from that company to try. They brought him in as an expert for that material to determine what exactly the issue was. So we received independent information from him, and there's no question that the truck is not operating in the way that it should. The sludge, the product coming from the treatment plant may also be an issue. So prior to jumping to another solution, we are looking at what the issue is with the sludge, because if we continue to have that problem, it won't matter what we do. We will continue to have dewatering issues. So I can appreciate the frustration that must happen when these things take a long time. And I can give an update in camera, as there are some non-public conversations that are occurring from a legal perspective that I am happy to inform you about. But we are conscious that it is not working as it should, and if as soon as we can find a viable solution, we may just go ahead and do that, but it's ongoing. And these things can happen. We are aware of the very aware of the situation, and our staff is very frustrated with the process and where we feel we should be.
That's fair. Just thank you for bringing it up and putting it in your report. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, thank you for your report. Priorities progress update. There's an attachment. Is there any one of them? Any questions on any of the progress in the report?
The Mariner Center, that's pretty well been on hold with the election and everything. I guess I'm looking at where we're at, and it's, the last two parts, I guess, long-term funding agreement. So there's nothing much going on with the funding at the moment. As you know, all that, there's
So-
pretty well.
Okay, so I just want to be clear, a long-term funding agreement for Mariner Center operations by fiscal year end is an internal work that basically extends the Mariner Center funding agreement that we have signed with the other two units.
Yeah.
That is not the capital funding for the expansion.
Thank you.
What we said, we knew we wouldn't get, I mean, certainly we were quite realistic when we put the Mariner Center on our priority list. There are 5 elements to that priority. So we have a shared vision with the municipality of Yarmouth and town of Yarmouth, which is on your agenda for approval tonight. We have invested an amount in consulting firm to lead the application that's been completed. And we've established projected expenses for capital, but we have not established operational projections for a future expansion. We can't do that until we know what in fact we are looking to expand, if we are going to expand. So that is definitely not going to happen this year, but the other amounts, the other items will.
Yeah, yeah, you've done 100% on 3 of them. I mean, it's gone as probably as far as it can at the moment, yeah. Right?
Yeah, yes, and Deputy Warden said that, I mean, there's, and the funny thing about regional priorities is that you're not the only one at the table. So sometimes you can establish priorities, but you don't, you know, if you're not aligned with the work, then it may or may not occur.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Hearing none. Item 10 for a decision. And the first one that's on there is for the resolution for municipal reform. And what that is, I guess, is, as I'm sure most people realize now, we are looking at whether council wants to take part in discussions regarding with the other two municipal units, Yarmouth and the municipality of Yarmouth and the town. This is just so that you're clear. This is not a decision for consolidation. It's a decision for discussions. That's all it is. No, there's no commitments if we go to these discussions or whatever. So the resolutions are, well, there's 3 attachments here. I'm sure most of council have read them, and I guess it's open for discussion.
I'll start, I guess, talk whether I'm a little onto the subject or I've drifted a little bit. It doesn't matter at this point for myself. The question on consolidation, amalgamation, whatever, I really believe that we should go at the table and at least sit down and have a conversation to what is out there, we have provincial people coming in that'll facilitate the discussion with the 3 units. I think that personally that, talking to some of the residents, that we can go to the next step. It doesn't hurt to listen to what's going on, see what the other units have to say. Maybe we'll have a very frank discussion and maybe find out amongst ourselves it can't work. It can't work, and maybe we'll discover, well, gee whiz, can we maybe do this or do that, or a different way of doing it with a provincial facility area there. Maybe you say, well, yeah, we've done this in this unit or that unit, and so to myself to go there and listen to the others, say our piece, and I don't think there's a problem, in my view. Certainly, I did get the message from talking to people that before we go any further, to be sure we sit down with the residents or have a formal meetings, in whatever district, and then they said, we want to know what's going on. Certainly the message was clear to me. We want to know what's going on before you go any further. They felt that just to have a talk wouldn't hurt, Some of the things were like, French language, what's gonna happen there with the French language? Once we've got 2 units that are, English, I know they've got nothing against the French, but all of a sudden, if we are there, the people are telling me that if we go there and you're 3 councillors per unit, and 6 of them vote against the 3 from Argyle, well, here we go, we're in a mess. People have been talking about taxes. Our taxes gonna go up. If you go in town, what they're paying, what will you pay if you're in the rural sector? What about the delivery of service? Will we still be getting the same service? So there's a lot of things that people don't know, but I think by going and finding out one step further and knowing what's going on, that we can get back to our residents, I think it's important that we have that conversation. And that's basically what I've done, to start the discussion.
I can, if I may, I can understand the frustration and perhaps the unknown and people being a little worried about what might happen if we did. But we have to realize that this is not a commitment to consolidate. This is a commitment to go listen to what there is. And before we go and listen to this, we cannot answer these questions that you have, right? I think there's a problem with how our regional services, we're having more and more problems with how we're delivering those and to come with agreements on how things should go and whatever. I'm not saying that consolidation is the answer, but I think something has to change in the way we're doing business with the other 2 municipalities as a group. And I'm not putting blame on any one or the other. There's 3 of us, right? Perhaps if we go to these discussions, we can discuss more than just consolidation. We can discuss other ways that maybe, if consolidation is not the way that the municipality wants to go, maybe we can come up with some kind of a system that's going to work better for our regional services, because the regional services that we have are going to be there. We have services there that are going to be there regardless, and we're always going to have to deal with them. And I think we've got to find a better way to deal with them than what we are doing now. Anybody else? Councillor?
I just want to reiterate the point that, and you both said it, but for example, I was at my meeting last night and we talked about the splash pad and where the location may end up being, and there was a member of the community that said, and when they consolidate, it will. Like, I feel the vibe out there is already, we are consolidating. That's kind of the vibe that I feel.
Exactly.
And I, again, want to clarify that it's not that we're consolidating, that we're having a conversation, asking questions, fact-finding, figuring out what it means. And that's it. It doesn't mean we're I feel like I have to say that again because it came up last night in my meeting.
Yes.
There you go.
It's step 1. It's the
Right.
first step here.
Well, it's like me, it's human nature. You're against change if you don't know what it's about, so your first reaction is naturally to be against it. And that's what I'm getting from the community right now, but it's based on not knowing what's going on.
Exactly.
And I can't answer questions, we haven't had a meeting or talked about it, so it's hard to describe what something may look like when you don't know yourself. But it's just human nature to be that way.
Yes.
Psychology 101.
Yeah. Councillor Long.
I have to agree with what Councillor Donaldson's saying. For example, when you look back, we had a major push when the UARB made us do a review of what do you call exactly, of our districts or just sorry, our boundaries. Yes. the conversation that stemmed from the community before any conversations happened with them, just the feedback he got was, you're too many councillors.
That's right.
It's costing us too much money. Reduce councillors. I heard that loud and clear. No problem. So what did staff do? We instructed staff to look at the options. We took those options. We did the best we could. Clearly, when you have, we felt 5 was too little to represent the district, so we went from 9 to 7. So obviously, when you reduce the number of councillors, you have to reduce the number of districts. So when we redrew the districts and went back to the public, what was the message from the public?
Stay at home.
Stay at 9. That makes no
Absolutely.
sense. Why would you do that? Right? So we wouldn't have gotten those facts had we not, or I shouldn't say we, had staff not went and found those points. So I heard loud and clear from, actually, I wrote down a few points here because I tend to lose my train of thought. So I'm just going to quote a few people here. I didn't ask their permission, but I won't say who they are. Points that were made for at least having the conversation. I believe as an elected official, your first step is to always gain information before making any decision, right? And I don't think anyone can disagree with that. Going to this preliminary process could benefit not just our region as a whole, but Argyle itself. And the least will be at the table and know what's available. Great points. Deny that option at this stage could deny a good opportunity. Regarding the lack of support, it may be better to begin talks now while you have a hat in hand than to be forced into a merger many years down the road when all parties are broken. You know, we do hear in our province that we have an aging population, baby boomers are retiring, that there is uncertainty of our tax base being able to keep up with the world we're living in, right? That is our currently one, maybe not our only, I guess it's not our only anymore, but our major source of income is our tax base. And if that's at stake, there's always that uncertainty. So at least if you do have these conversations now, you're a little more prepared down the road, I think, is the point that was made. And these are points that are made for meeting. And I just want to say out loud, because I feel like we have to really steer this conversation today, as the warden was mentioning, with the public, because the public's watching today. And I think there's a lot of fear in the public. And what I'm most fearful for is that the public thinks here at council we haven't heard them. Because I heard the message loud and clear.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get to that message that I heard loud and clear. But prior to this, I read between the lines to what staff's concerns are. Because although we have to answer to our electoral districts, we have to instruct staff how to move forward. And we take into account a lot of opinions staff make. And here's what I heard from staff. Mainly, a lot of feedback they get is that the public isn't aware exactly of how many collaborations we currently have in place with the municipal districts that we're considering meeting with, the 2 others. Examples of sharing at the moment is a region, or maybe not at the moment, but through the years, some more now than before, or as well as the opposite, but a regional EMO, District Planning Commission, Waste Management, the Mariner Center, the YMCA, Ferry Terminal. And a message that I received is that over time, it's in the report that's attached. This is a quote from the report that's attached to the agenda, but unintentionally the 3 units created somewhat of a governance nightmare. Multiple intermunicipal agreements and corporations, all with their versions of administrative costs, policy development, etc. Costs are mounting with only local taxation revenue to offset them. Our current structure for addressing regional priorities causes major frustration. We currently require repair to the system that we have in place. But one part about that is that often CAOs spends 40 to 50% of their time on contract negotiations.
Exactly.
Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense.
So when you're talking about consolidation, amalgamation, things like that, you're talking about reduced efforts. And although that could look a various amount of ways, but currently right now, 40 to 50% of CAOs from all 3 municipalities' time is spent on contract renegotiations. Not brand new contracts, but renegotiations. That's a point that blew my mind. So this is what I'm hearing from staff, is that there's a frustration with how, things could just run more smoothly with especially with contracts and things that we do collectively, that we're clearly going to continue to do so in the future, because although our residents maybe reside in Argyle, we understand that they work and do other things and utilize a lot of the services that are located geographically in other municipal units. So this brings me to points that I made against. These are points that are received mainly from Facebook. I'm sure all of you have been following it. You've been wanting to feel out your districts. Points made against, and I'm going to read a few of them. Although I don't agree with the idea of them joining, I think it could be beneficial to see what their points. It is important to preserve what's left of the Acadian voice in the province. Acadians already lost provincial autonomy, now we give up municipal. Besides letting the town decide everything for the surrounding areas, that wouldn't be good. So the mayor and the councillors of the town could decide what happens in Pummigo. So you decide to build a new municipal building, and now you want to join with the town. I want to touch on that one in a second. Another question is, how many councillors and districts would there be? What happens to your current building plans if you're talking about amalgamation? What happens to the tax rate? So these are all questions that we've gotten, right? And do any of you guys have those answers?
No.
None of us do, right? So a lot of these people told me, don't go sit at the table because of all these questions, right? But my problem there is, how do you answer these questions if you don't at least go sit at the table, right? And that's where I want to be really careful with my message. I see that there's tweaking that could be done to make the 3 municipal units work better. I also hear very loudly, and I want it to be clear in the communities, that this message was received by at least myself, and I'm sure most of you, I can't speak for you, but at least I understood that the culture issues, the language issues, even the geographical barriers of, you know, basically what happened, look what happened on the provincial boundaries. We just won a fight to regain those. There's fear in losing that in Argyle at the municipal level, and I really, really get that. So the problem is, we don't know the answer to those questions, and we don't know how we can fix or tweak the issues we have, or what the future could hold until you go sit at the table. So, myself, I personally feel that I heard very loudly from our districts that they don't want consolidation with other municipalities, and I get that. And that point will always stay strong with me. However, we need to be at the table to understand what any of that looks like. Just like as I mentioned with the example of reducing from 9 councillors to 7. We all heard it from our communities loud and clear. You gotta reduce, you're spending, you know, if you remove 2 councillors, you save 40 grand a year-ish, that can go somewhere else. We got that, we looked at it, we brought it back to the public, and they all said themselves, this wasn't the council, I mean, we made the decision ultimately for them, but I felt like we did a great job listening to our communities, right? So I wanted to be very clear that any conversation we have, anything we talk about, any decision we would make, we need to gather facts, and we need to take it back to the communities. So, as far as sitting at the table, having a conversation facilitated from the province, I think we should. I think a lot of things could work better. However, one last point, and I think we should have maybe started the conversation today with, it's a grave concern of mine that we need the public to understand where this conversation came from. Because I think we should be clear that we've talked about this, I don't dare guess how long ago, but we're in the final stages of getting ready to build a new building. So this isn't a new.
It was 3.5 years ago.
3.5? So we had this conversation, clearly. And I think that is sort of gonna look like a silly point to the public with, why are you talking about amalgamation now if you're just about getting ready to build a new building?
Tender vote out.
So I think we need, yeah, exactly. So I think whether the warden or our CEO could maybe touch on why we're bringing this up today, because there's been a lot of pressure, well, A, the Ivy report, and B, pressure from the province because they're doing this in other districts. So I think it's important that we maybe address that now. That's all I have to say.
Great point.
It's up to you. I can, we can attempt to address that now or hear from other councillors
Well, why don't we? yeah,
first, or it's
okay.
entirely up to you.
Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
With that? Anybody else?
I just, from the public, what I heard from my district, it was have a conversation, see what there's out there, but I know that they were telling me they didn't want to amalgamate or go to the, fuse with the other municipalities.
That's right.
But I think that we should go out and see what's on the table, like the rest of you, I agree with that. As a whole, I mean, what one district says and what the other district says is not always the same, but I think it's what the public says. We represent the public, we represent the municipality as a whole. This is a whole municipal, it's not just one district. So I think we should just go out and see what's there, what benefits our residents. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dickon.
I don't know what to say, because I honestly don't know what information we could get from this meeting. I honestly don't. I don't have all the answers by no means. And I don't know why. It seems like, and I've just been looking at different Facebook posts from different councillors in different areas, and it seems as if we go down more to the easter, down our way. I had over 150 people respond on Facebook, and to myself personally. I had one gentleman that was all in favor for us to amalgamate. He feels as though he is overrepresented by politicians, and we would save a lot of money by not building the new municipal office. Another gentleman thought we give a lot of money into Yarmouth anyway, so it might as well go to the meeting and see what comes out of it. Approximately 10 people said they would need more information, which I honestly believe. Over 100 people, and I specifically asked them, and that a lot of them, and that don't want us to participate in the meeting. And some of the reasons they were giving us, you go to this meeting and we're going to be led down the golden path. It's already a done deal. Build up our own areas and have meetings about it instead of going to have meetings about amalgamation. This also includes 2 former councillors that told me stay clear of the meetings. Smoke and mirrors figures what we hear at these meetings. They'd feel better, some of them, a couple of people have said this, they'd feel better if we're going east towards Barrington instead of west towards Yarmouth. And this is what I've been told by some people. And what can be decided at meetings can be changed in 2 years' time. And that they feel as though they'd lose. They feel as though if we did ever amalgamate, that what would become of it, what's said today and what would actually happen in 3 or 4 years' time can be totally different. The Acadians, I've heard from a lot of Acadians, and that feel as though they would lose if amalgamation ever took place, and that as far as their identity, and that why don't we have more subcommittees to take the pressure off of some of the CAOs and help with some of the decisions, is what I've been hearing. And yeah, that's my, to be honest and truthful with you, I'd like to say that I was told to go to meetings and hear what is said and bring it back to us. That's not what I was told, loud and clear. I was told, stay out of the meetings, don't get into it. It's just a step closer to amalgamation. And one thing when I did run for council, and that I had a brochure made up and I put on it that everyone has a voice and I'm prepared to listen. And I'm still prepared to listen to this day. Mind you, whatever way it would go, and that or this does end up, I will work for the people no matter what. And one last thing about everyone having a say, and that I honestly feel, my own personal opinion, if it ever got to a serious talk about amalgamation, or it possibly going that way, that I don't think it should be, and that's my own personal opinion, I don't think it should be decided by 9 councillors in a room. I think it should be brought back to the people, let them make the decision, tell us what way they want us to go, and we respect, or whoever the councillors may be here at that time, respect that decision.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I guess it looks like it's my turn, so we've had all kinds of great points here. I live in West Pamlico, which geographically probably the furthest away from the town of Yarmouth. East Pamlico, but the harbor. But you know, West Pamlico is kind of unique because we kind of have our own, you know, economy. We have you know, services and fisheries, which makes us a little bit more independent. And you know, so you would hear that from West Pamlico, and I heard that from people from West Pamlico, but I also heard from business people in the area who definitely were in favor of us talking to to going and having a talk or conversation just to, you know, find out what's on the table. I feel that, you know, even ourselves, we've been uninformed, and so has the public. So, you know, some of these answers, as far as I'm concerned, were from uninformed people, you know, lack of a better word, that's how I feel. So, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with sitting down and having a conversation. You know, I think we can use the example, you know, what kind of things can come out of this? Well, I think CA Muse just mentioned about, I think our solid waste contract coming up maybe?
The solid waste pickup,
Yeah, so pickup, so.
garbage pickup.
So we're in the process of tendering or, and are the other units too? Are they in the process or?
Yes.
So we got three?
Yes.
Three. So everybody's doing their own thing, right? So if there was a way that, you know, maybe we could work together and have one contract, right? I'm not saying it's through amalgamation or conciliation, but, you know, I feel like, and I've been here for 19 years, and, you know, there's a lot of things that come up, and, you know, when I think of the governance and all the committees and all the different things that are involved, the intermunicipal agreements, almost like it looks like a tangled web, you know? So it's like, you know, wow, you know, it's kind of like just, this one was born, and this one was born, and this one was born, and, you know, and they're all, you know, so if there was a way to be more efficient and to clean up some of that stuff, I think it'd be great. Again, you know, is it, you know, what's the answer? Is it amalgamation? Is it conciliation? Is it, you know, whatever the answer is, right? So, anyway, so you guys know where I'm leaning. I'm leaning towards talking, you know, there's definitely nothing wrong with sitting down and talking to the other units in the province to see what they're, you know, and we are 2020. It's not, you know, 1880 when the municipality was formed, right? It's 2020. And today, it's funny, I was watching TV and we were talking about when the light bulb came about. And, you know, the candlestick maker was probably pretty upset when the light bulb came. But, you know, which one do you want? Do you want a candle or do you want the light bulb? You know? So those are the things we can explore.
Okay. Yes, and I guess, come back to my comments, and you said the same thing, that we have so many different things going on, but there's gotta be a better way to either bring everything together somehow, and I'm not saying amalgamation or consolidation, whichever word you wanna use, is the answer. There's gotta be a way to get these things ironed out, and that'll work better for everybody, for all three, for sure. Now, you were going, oh, Judy said, did you have, no? Okay. So, the question that was brought to you, do you remember the question?
Yeah, yes, there was a couple of them, actually. One of them had to do with the building.
Yes.
And I think that, I think many people have a different idea of what consolidation might mean. And I think we, at the time that we went to the community 3.5 years ago, we did the public engagement on the building. And this very question came up.
Yes.
And it's like, why would you build a new building in Argyle when you're basically going to amalgamate in X, Y amount of years? Well, first of all, that was not a factual comment, but the comment is still, it's a good question to ask, right? And so I think the answer that came, and I can't recall whether it came from a councillor or staff or a combination, is that Argyle was committed to delivering a service in its community. And so regardless of what would happen around municipal structure, whether it's a reform or a consolidation or whatever the case may be, there would always be a need to have a local service, a local administration of services in Argyle. So a consolidation, I think some have a vision of consolidation of having one big building and having everybody in one big building. Well, that one big building doesn't exist today. And so, and no one building could accommodate all of us. There's this, I can only speak to the history of consolidation and amalgamation. Quite often there are very few staff layoffs. Oftentimes the services that need to be delivered get delivered. They just get delivered differently. The people that lose their jobs are people like me. And the CAOs do have a tendency to be, there should be less of them, absolutely, in a consolidated environment. And council, there's often less political representation in those kinds of environments. Those things historically have happened, but you know, Argyle would still require recreation services, it would still require community development, it would still require a lot of services. So I think the idea that to decide to put a building and then suddenly talk about, or even consider talking about consolidation, I hope, you know, I firmly believe that the services that Argyle requires would continue regardless of a conversation about consolidation. And I say conversation because that's all that's really being put in front of you right now. I'm trying to recall the second question, and I think it had to do with, I wrote down consolidation. That was a really helpful word
I can help.
to remember the question.
More for the public, I think, is gonna inquire, why are you having this conversation now while you're in the process
Right.
of building buildings? So where did this stem from? I
Okay.
think that has to be
Right.
addressed.
So unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because I don't think these conversations should start the way that they did. I'm just being honest. Typically, the conversation on amalgamation and consolidation start at the public. That's where they start, typically. That is not where this particular conversation began. Where this conversation began was subsequent to the consolidation of Windsor West Hants. So the province, the minister asked their staff to go across Nova Scotia and get a feel for who else might be interested in having a conversation. Again, this isn't consolidation, this is conversation. And so that's where it began. So it didn't get started by any of the three units, like it didn't begin with the municipality of Yarmouth or the town of Yarmouth or with us. I think the staff of the department went and had initial meetings with each individual council, along with the CAO in that meeting, and started to ask questions about whether or not this is something that we as a group of three would consider. I can only presume this to be true. We have a lot of partnerships. We have a lot of pre-existing shared services in Yarmouth County, particularly the town and municipality do. They have more than, I think it's like 28, 29 and counting, services that they do together rather than do independently. And we too have quite a few regional shared services because in some cases it makes absolutely no sense to do it alone. And so we already have some of those services. And I think that because Yarmouth County has been working together on a lot of different files, it made sense to have the conversation in this corner. There's absolutely zero doubt that the way that we have structured ourselves with some of these companies that we share, that process needs to be repaired. There are many ways that can be fixed. Consolidation may or may not be one of those ways. There are a number of ways that you can do structural reform with municipalities without losing the independence of being Argyle as a municipality. There are cost centers that are in the county of Lunenburg, for instance, and other ways to do business that are fundamentally different than the way that we do them now. The way that we've done business now has been an unintentional result. You know, downloads of airports and ferry terminals and having communities face this idea that we have to pick up on those services that the federal and provincial governments have let go. And because Yarmouth, and particularly located in the town, because the infrastructure was built in the county, it puts more pressure on the community, on the municipalities that are in that community to maintain. Right, so not every community in Nova Scotia had an airport. Not every community in Nova Scotia had an international ferry terminal. So those particular instances have made it very difficult for us to manage those situations in an effective way. Anyway, I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but it's giving a little history on why the province might consider us as a candidate to have a conversation.
Councillor Dickey.
The only thing I'll pick up on, something you said there, as far as doing alone, there's things we cannot do alone. It's as simple as that. We need the other regions around us. We need the other units to work with them, you know, them work with us. There's no saying we don't. You know, is there a better way of working regionally without amalgamation? Maybe there is. Maybe we will find out at these meetings, like, you know, I guess you don't know until you actually get into them, and it's human nature to be scared of change. We all are, you know. Having said that, I know how I have to vote tonight, because I am scared to die. It's as simple as that. And if there's one out of 23 or 24 councillors, I guess I'll be the one. It's as simple as that. So, yeah.
An undertaker somewhere.
Jeez. Don't get picked up by it, never mind.
You had something, Councillor Blanc?
I just want to make a comment to Councillor Digdon. I struggled with the same thing you did. A lot of my electoral district told me, don't even go, you know, because we're not going to consider it. We're proud for whatever, you know, they represent, being Acadian or French or whatnot. And I struggled with that as well. However, as it was very much pointing tonight, I just want the public to be aware. I heard that, and that's how I feel as well. However, I think what they'd appreciate more is if you at least go have the conversations and bring them back information. That's how I finished my train of thought, because I struggled for quite some time now with gauging the amount of people that were pro or against, and trying to crunch numbers, and the numbers were close. So I think that's how I came to my conclusion. And I think, even though you feel a little guilty because some of them did say, don't even bother going to these meetings, I think it's the business equivalent of putting your fingers in your ears and saying blah, 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 I'm not listening, right? Which I think having a conversation and hearing from staff that things could run smoother, more efficient with a cost savings, you know, if we could figure it out. I just want to make a comment to you, that's how I came to my conclusion.
Oh, by all means, and I respect that by all means, and, you know, if it is decided that we go to these meetings, I will be there. There's no saying I won't. Front and center, I will be getting as much information as I can to bring back to, you know, the people. In my case, it wasn't even close as far as telling me to go or not go. Nothing near close.
Okay, so I think we've heard pretty much, unless somebody else has, okay.
I'd just like to add that I'm very, very concerned over that 40% of the time being spent by the 3 CAOs. That really bothers me a lot, to see where, you know, where we can go, and maybe having these conversations to see what is the problem. Are we protecting our own boundaries, each one, and it's causing these bouncing at each other, and we're not getting anywhere? That's something that must be very frustrating to the CAOs, the 3 of them. And even if we can even settle that somehow or talk about it, that would be important to me. One more item.
Okay, yes?
So I just one comment, and then maybe if you wouldn't mind, that we'll actually read the resolution that you'll be
Yes,
voting on.
for sure.
Because there's a lot of talk about what the resolution might be, but it would be important for the community to hear what in fact you're going to pass tonight, because that resolution isn't just about consolidation. So I'll make sure that, so we'll read that out, but I just want to clarify that 40 to 50% of CAO's time isn't just renegotiating contracts. It is also dealing with some of these intermunicipal activities. So what happens is, you know, under normal circumstances, and I'll be very brief, hopefully, is under normal circumstances, if you're delivering a service at the municipality of Argyle, and you want to make a decision, you can make it. And you can tell your CAO to go ahead and do it, right? So at these regional tables, it's not that simple. And I'm not suggesting if your decisions are simple. I'm suggesting you can debate and you can vote, and the majority has it. And it's not always unanimous, right? But the ayes have it and you move on, right? So that's not the case in the way that we're currently doing business regionally. So that part has to change one way or another. Consolidation isn't the answer necessarily to that question, right? So I just want to be very clear, like there is a problem, and the problem can be solved outside of consolidation. It can be better. It absolutely could be better. It could be done better. It could be done more efficiently. it just has to be, elected and CAOs have to make a decision to change the way they control the day-to-day operations of some of those regional relationships, right? Like, if you're willing to let go, then you're not in the business of doing it. You're not working, you're not, like, sometimes we're supposed to be working on the business, but we're working in the business. And so working in the business of regional delivery of services, 3 different groups with 3 different opinions that cannot influence the other opinions can cause an issue, right? And so,
Absolutely.
again, I'm not suggesting consolidation is the answer, but I am absolutely suggesting that there's a problem. And there's a problem that needs to be addressed, and it can be better, I can assure you. And it doesn't have to be consolidation to make it better. So if the choice of this council is to go down that road and vote in favor of this, it does not mean that consolidation is your only option. There are plenty of options, and I'll say only one more thing on that item, is that the province of Nova Scotia knows about those other options. They know what's happening in other provinces, and so being part of the conversation allows you to ask those questions in a forum that is inclusive. I mean, you can always ask those questions of the province, but having the facilitated conversation, you're able to ask, well, what's the difference between this and that? Okay? So the resolution itself
Yes.
has a bunch of whereases. If you'll permit me.
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
So this is what I imagine you would consider to decide one way or another. So whereas the councils for the municipality district of Argyle, District of Yarmouth, Town of Yarmouth recognize the critical importance of regional cooperation to the growth and prosperity of the region. Whereas council values the importance of building on past efforts for regional cooperation and understands that further collaboration potentially benefits all residents of the region. Whereas council recognizes that municipal cooperation and collaboration shall be improved dramatically with structural and governance reform. Didn't see consolidation there. Whereas council recognizes that there are alternatives to structural and governance reform, one of which includes a full consolidation of 2 or more units, and wishes to learn more about these options. Whereas the councils of the 3 municipalities agree that discussions should take place with each other to explore opportunities for structural reform, and that these discussions would be most productive if coordinated and facilitated by representatives of the province. Whereas while municipal structure and governance reform is required for growth and prosperity, the municipality of the District of Argyle is home to many Acadian residents in communities that require special consideration for the preservation of minority language and culture. Whereas the municipality of the District of Argyle has taken a firm position on the preservation of our provincial riding, and that a court of law has requested that the province return our provincial riding to its original boundaries in the interest of protecting and preserving Acadian minority language rights. And whereas communication and public engagement is critical to any successful review of structural change, regardless of its form, and Argyle residents have traditionally been actively engaged in municipal government. Now therefore be it resolved that the municipality of Argyle submit a formal request to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing for the province of Nova Scotia to coordinate a facilitated session between the councils for the municipality of the District of Argyle, District of Yarmouth, and Town of Yarmouth to discuss structural reform, including a discussion on a potential consolidation of the 3 municipal units, such session to be held within the next 45 days. Number 2, that the municipality of District of Argyle submit a formal request to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing to include the lens of Francophone Acadian minority rights in their facilitated discussion, and to consider the preservation of those rights in their presentation on municipal structural and governance reform. 3, and final, that the municipality of the District of Argyle ensure that any and all discussions result in open and transparent communication to the public, and that the communication may be coordinated with the other 2 units or be independent of those units. That is the resolution that we have drafted for your consideration. It is substantially different than the suggested resolution that the province had suggested. They had suggested some language it was less detailed, and it was less it was more templated. It was not meant to be just for Argyle. It was meant to be for all 3 units as a guide. So some of these whereases and resolutions come from the concerns that you have raised through either we saw through your comments through social media, or that you raised with staff directly. So we try to incorporate those right at the get-go, because if we're not addressing those, we're nowhere in
What's
it.
the use going?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay,
so that's,
And the only thing I will say, I personally had a little, maybe set off on the wrong foot when these two gentlemen from the government came in to talk to us that evening here about it. It wasn't an in-camera meeting and that, so, but the only thing I didn't like that evening, and I'm not going behind anyone's back to say it, they came in here, they were talking amalgamation and that consolidation. It was the right time for the people down here, it was the right way to do it, they knew the right way to do it, they could get it done. And that, but for us not to talk to the people outside, to keep it quiet. And that there I had a problem with, there's no saying I didn't, and I'm sure we all heard it, anyone that was at that meeting. You know, I heard it loud and clear, so that I had a little problem with. So, anyway, thank you.
One minor point on the whereas clauses, the second to last. Not only has the court requested that the province return those, the legislature of the province has passed legislation approving the return of the boundary of the original, or of the Argyle riding. That might be important to put in there. Maybe it doesn't seem so at the moment, but whatever changes are to be brought for municipal reform, if it's in the form of consolidation, the legislature has to be reminded that it approved certain things prior to, something like that. I would suggest that. That's a political decision on your part, not a legal decision, but from a legal standpoint, the legislation has already been approved.
and that was in the whereas in.
The second to last.
Second to last.
Second to last, I was looking at the second, okay, now I see it, yes, I understood the second, I couldn't see it. So-
and really, I mean, you can amend the resolution if you will. It's just, it's providing additional information. I mean, ultimately, it was the Charter of Rights that was the foundational document that
Yes.
forced, I guess, the government to change their position on the boundary changes, which,
Section 3 of our Constitution.
right, which highlights,
Chart.
which would highlight the importance of, you know, look, it highlights the importance of preserving the minority language and preserving, sorry, the minority language, culture, and language of the community. I mean, it's well established in our not only provincial but Canadian law, basic law. So it should not be foreign to anyone. Looking into this. So, I mean, it's entirely up to you to whether you want to change the wording.
What do you feel? My feeling is that it covers what,
I-
it says.
I'm good with what's there.
You know,
I'm good with what's there.
What's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how many people have told me not to even go to the meeting, if they'd have heard all this, seen it ahead of time, they'd have said the same thing.
It's hard to say.
It's hard to say, right?
Yeah, which is, I guess that's the value of information
Yes.
Absolutely.
to help us along.
It's like, as I said early on,
Great
is
point.
people are just scared of change because it's change.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need a motion on this resolution.
So it is a resolution, so what you are passing is the resolution.
Resolution.
So I think you would move and second and then vote, but there's no, like, the resolution is the motion. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
So what you're moving and seconding is the resolution as read.
that's right, and that gives council, if it passes, yes, we're going to the discussions, basically.
Yes, but what it says is that we're requesting a discussion not only on consolidation, but on structural reform.
On structural reform.
And that there is no discussion without consideration for
Exactly.
minority protection.
Exactly.
And finally, there is no action at all without engaging with the public. That's what the resolution says.
I so move.
Move. Need a seconder.
I'll say.
Moved and seconded.
I don't remember saying it first, you go ahead.
Oh, did you second it? Okay.
Because the
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion on this?
question,
Question call. All in favor?
Aye.
Contraminded?
Nay.
Motion carried.
Can I like it recorded, please? Thank you.
Okay, next one. MOU-Fisheries and Aquaculture, 2 attachments. I'm gonna let you take that one, Alain, you can explain it a little better than I can, I'm
Well,
sure.
thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Warden. Very, very quickly. Memorandum of Understanding is attached. It's been developed between the province and ourselves. The gentlemen and women involved included myself and Charlene LeBlanc in the development of the MOU for your consideration. Very quickly, it has to do with the aquaculture development area. That is not for all aquaculture. That is a focus on oyster and other sea marine that would be similar to that. We already have, as you know, established oyster farms in the Argyle waters, some of which are in Eel Lake and now more so in the ocean. However, there are 2, even potentially 3 developers in that area already. The biggest challenge to getting into the industry is how long it takes. It takes 3 years to actually start to get a return on your investment, and that doesn't count how long it takes for you to be getting through the regulatory process. There's a reason why the regulations take some time. It is a complicated decision. It involves public engagement. It involves First Nation considerations, environment, fishing, all considerations. You've seen some examples of that in our public engagement when Nolan was seeking an additional lease and that meeting was held at the Club Acadien, like 2 years ago. Also, there was another development more recently. So the regulatory, the regulations are still within the responsibility of the province, so we're not going to be in the business of saying yay or nay. What we're doing is actually clearing some of the regulatory tape in advance. So when somebody comes in and wants a lease, we say, not only can you do it here, but we have regulatory go-ahead from a number of, like pre-approvals from a number of associations. The province still has to run through their system and they may still reject an application. However, it vastly speeds up the application based on the fact that this is has been a strategic priority, long-term strategic priority for you. I would present it and I would recommend its approval tonight.
Okay. Councillor LeBlanc.
As always, I think this is a great program and extremely unique, very unique actually. So I'll move that we approve this memorandum of understanding between the municipality of Argyle and the province of Nova Scotia.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded.
Yeah.
Discussion?
Just one,
Yes?
so one other, the MOU does not bind you legally. It is a memorandum of understanding. It's not a contract. So it's basically setting the parameters around where we will play in the sandbox, but it's not a legal binding contract that you must do this. So
Okay.
just to clarify.
Question has been called. All in favor?
Aye.
Contraminded, carried. Next one is volunteer firefighters, and it's with the department, it's a letter. What it is, the letter of support from Barrington. They're asking us for support, letter of support. They have made application to the Department of Education, asking to be able to provide personal development credits to students who join the volunteer fire department and completed all the required training. And what they're looking for is a letter of support. So,
Sorry.
yes?
No, I'd be willing to make that letter, ask to give them a letter of support by all means.
And I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Contraminded? Carried. Emergency fund update, and I read it, and I think all I saw there that was changing was to increase the maximum amount to 500 from 400. The rest didn't change, right?
No, correct. The only thing I would add is that we don't require any proof from the person that is in need. What we rely on is the word of council and/or another resident.
Right.
So, if somebody in the community says, yes, this person is in need, then we support the request to the extent that we can. There's always, and if people are in need, the last thing they need is to have to submit a bunch of information.
Exactly.
And so we just, it's kind of a good neighbor policy. 400 didn't seem like a lot for people in a lot of
That's right.
Think of all of
difficulty, correct? And the last reason why we increased it, or recommending,
Move
is,
that we approve.
oh, sorry, no, the last reason is because we have quite a bit of money put aside
Yes.
for through Experience Argyle.
There has not been a whole lot of requests, and I don't know, apparently, and I don't know if that's because people don't know about it, or council, like, I've had a few requests, like, I think,
I have as well.
Same here, I have a couple.
Yeah, staff could improve our
yes, and that's.
promotion of
and
this
that's fine.
policy.
Yeah. Okay, so we need a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded, carried. 10E is Mariner Center Vision and Mission Statement. Now, do we need to approve that? Is that something we do?
We do. This has been developed, some of you participated in the public engagement session associated with that. It was Max Chauvin and Debbie Smith that did the presentation. This is the result of their work.
Oh, okay.
And so the town, through their communications person, developed this nice, pretty document. And I fully expect that the municipality and town of Yarmouth will approve this strategic vision as presented. I'm happy to answer any questions that I can.
Yeah, I just felt that, we're not owners, right?
Correct.
And that's why I thought maybe that we didn't have to prove this. That was just my question.
I think because we have board representation, it would be appropriate.
Yes, we do have both.
But if you wish to say, as a non-owner, kind of, because really at the end of the day, if the town and municipality wanted a different vision, they could certainly do that.
Exactly.
As owners.
Yes.
But so you could tailor the motion to kind of, admit that we're not an owner, but that we're approving.
This being another one goes under good neighbor and it's to support it.
Yes.
Really,
We're actually fortunate to have people around the decision-making table because we're only funders, we're not owners. So the town and municipality certainly invited us to the decision-making table.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any more questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
aye.
Contrary-minded, carried. Standing Committee of Council Emergency Services. Now, apparently, pardon me?
119, you read them all. 119, hope you read them all.
Should have warned you not to. Yeah, I should have warned you not to read the 119.
Don't pass that.
Don't pass that. Oh, we're bad.
Would you like me to read it for you, Councillor?
119, I hope you all read it.
Page 1.
This is gonna be like Jeudi Saint. We're gonna say prayers all night long. One page at a time. Everybody will take a turn.
Exactly.
The only difference, you can all sit down for this one.
So it's to develop a standing committee.
It's a standing committee, and the municipality has been approached by a concerned group of volunteers that they saw the need to improve the training for fire department volunteers. It would be standing, to be standardizing the training for all 9. So because with the, what's happening sometimes with the mutual aid, everybody has different standards. And when they come there could be someone trying to do something because it's good with theirs, maybe not good. So this would be, it would establish a committee made up of volunteer firefighters and council members. Now you can add whatever, and it's.
Just that we need permission to create the committee, so that the work of the committee, the 119 pages that are attached is an example of the result of the committee work. I mean, we have already done some preliminary work as staff, and we've looked around at our neighbors and asked the question, you know, who's effective at doing, delivering volunteer firefighting services, and you know, the two that came out really shining were Clare and Barrington. And Barrington particularly so. They have a full-time fire coordinator, and they've done some extremely good work around setting up departments for success. So we would definitely pillage from the Barrington work, and they're more than happy not only to give us the information, but to actually participate in the conversations while we're moving this forward. So. Practice, training standards, other things to bring the standard up to a place that we're more comfortable with. And this is coming from our volunteers. This is not coming from the municipality directly, although we do recognize that the need is there.
This conversation has been happening for a while. I know I've heard it for quite some time.
I'd be willing,
No, I was just gonna add, you go ahead then, that's all.
No, I was just gonna say I'd be willing to make that motion, that a standing committee be struck, and that the CAO develop a draft terms of reference for council's consideration.
Seconded.
Okay, moving second, did you have?
I just want to add on that being at that meeting and you're going to the Fire Association meetings, a lot of stuff because of insurance purposes and stuff like that, and you know, somebody getting hurt and all that. It's so important for those standards to come to the level that, you know, that the province has. That's it.
Any more questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded? Carried. Next one, nomination, Order of Canada, and I think you brought that, I'm gonna pass that over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hope that, Richard, you read it all. Yeah, I speak in French.
With Google now and the translation site, you can do anything you want.
Well, I never realized that, just joking really. I've approached a person that I felt that deserved a chance to at least make an application to the Governor General, Julie Payette, for the Order of Canada. And for nominee, all individuals who make outstanding contributions to their field of endeavor are eligible for appointment to the Order of Canada. So this particular person, Gerald Boudreau, was born and raised in Westport. He has shown outstanding leadership in the preservation of the Acadian culture and the French language. En 1973, de retour en Acadie, après qu'il avait été à Saskatchewan pour un bout de temps, il a non content de se consacrer à cette grande institution de recherche de 1994. Il a aussi terminé ses études de doctorat à l'Université de Montréal. Durant toute sa carrière, M. Boudreau a fait preuve de leadership hors normes, travaillant avec ses collègues administrateurs pour faire grandir la seule institution post-secondaire francophone de la Nouvelle-Écosse. He has resided for 4 terms, represented for 4 terms as president of the National Association of Canadian Education in the French language. He was co-president of the nomination of the Grand Pré as a historical site, which was finally designated by UNESCO in June of 2012. He has wrote and published books on Father Sigoin, the first Canadian priest at Cap Sable. He has also written several other books, fiction and non-fiction, and terminé pour toutes ces raisons que n'a su la C, pour une vie mise en service du peuple acadien et de la francophonie, pour sa contribution au Canada et à ses valeurs, nous soumettons la candidature de M. Gérald Boudreau à l'Ordre du Canada. So I would certainly propose that if this, if the municipality could advance this, if it was so the wish of this council to have Mr. Boudreau at least put a nomination paper in and to see where it goes. I've done all the groundwork, I got the letters written, I had somebody help me write that in French, I couldn't write it. So all the groundwork is done, and I think that Alain has told me, I spoke to him on the side, that if somebody from staff could fill out the application, to help me, I certainly would be there to help with the information I've got. And he said, so if up to council if they so wish. So I would like to make that nomination.
I'll second it.
Okay, so this is moved and seconded. So this is a nomination to come from the municipality?
From the municipality.
Okay,
I felt it would be better if he came from the municipality, he says, oh, than just a person.
right. Yes. So it's been moved and seconded. Any questions, any comments, discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded? Carried. Next one is a REMO, selection of executive committee members, and I guess the executive will include 2 council members, one of which will be the warden. I was looking for something to do.
You're bored.
But I'll
You
take it.
found it.
Yeah, but
I'm
you
sorry.
can designate, it says right here,
Pardon
one
me?
to another.
Oh, yeah,
Presumably the deputy.
it could be the deputy.
I didn't read that. Is it there?
Yeah, first paragraph.
So we need 2 members. So is there more to add to that, or?
Only that the
That-
REMO agreement is attached, if, in
It's
case you don't
there.
believe me.
Yeah,
Um,
it's there.
Yeah, so, yeah, two members of council, one of whom shall be the mayor or warden. Typically, when we say that, it doesn't say that you can designate that.
No.
But you could if you really wanted to. But one of the reasons why one of them is the warden is that the warden has special powers for setting the warden, while typically would have the council approve it, the warden can unilaterally declare a state of emergency.
I see.
So
Okay.
that's why
Yes.
that
Makes
person
sense.
is involved in the executive committee.
I would like to ask if Councillor Dignan would be interested to be on that.
I would be interested to be on that, and that there's one of the regional endeavors that we got into here in the last little while, that actually I may have made the motion that we go that way, because that was just one of the places I felt that we as a municipality could not do it alone. We don't have the expertise, we don't have the experience, we don't have the equipment to do it alone. So by no means do I want anyone to think I'm against regionalization and that, or nothing like that. But yes, I'd like to set on that. Thank you.
Okay, so
I so move that we accept Councillor Digdon to be REMO. I was gonna say,
I second that.
Could we
And
could we
you have
amend the
to-
motion to include
the warden as well?
Yeah.
oh, I thought the warden was,
Automatic.
No, it still have to be.
Probably still should be by motion.
Okay, yes, okay.
okay, I'll make the motion, we accept the warden, Danny Muse and Councillor Van Dignan.
Second that.
Okay. Moved and seconded, question called for, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded, carried. That's,
TIR.
oh no, there's a couple more here. Here,
Letter to TRI.
TIR letter, that was Councilor Digdon wanted to bring that up.
Make a motion, I'll second it.
Okay.
I love it.
No.
You'll be truthful, right?
On January 8th, we had quite a snowstorm, and that, or what would some people would consider quite a snowstorm around. We only had about 15 centimeters or so in the Pubnico area. It was hard to believe how bad the roads actually were for the next 24 to 36 hours later in the West Pubnico area. I called TIR, an official with TIR, 3 times, wanting to know where the salt trucks were and where the plows were, and asking them, please come down towards West Pubnico, please. Well, we've been down there. And that, well, I said, it sure don't look like you've been down here. And that the roads are slippery. I mean, they're very, very slippery. And I went for a drive to East Pubnico, and I went for a drive to Argyle. They were much better. I understand that the 103 has to be done first. I understand that the 3 has to be done after that. But it was unbelievable how bad the roads were in the West Pubnico area for that length of time. I know of at least 2 accidents that happened that day. So then maybe the gentleman with TIR got a little upset with me. And he said, if the people would stay off the roads and that they pack it down, that's what's going on. They're packing.
That's the reason to go, because we're on the roads.
There you go, there you go. Now, and he said he knows this. And yes, it is right. We do pack it down, the people pack it down. There's traffic on the roads 24 hours a day in the Pubnico area. Going down to the wharf, and that the gentleman, the fishermen, I should say, some women involved in the fishery as well, and that go down all hours of the day and night to check their boats. They go fishing. They go down, every one of those boats that's floating, that's $1 million operations, and that we've got plants down there, big employers, and that I received a text message from one of the supervisors at one of the plants. She was scared because her women were coming into work, and she said the roads are great up until Pubnico Head, and she said what I'm scared of is something is going to happen to them from there down to Lower West Pubnico. And that, so anyway, I'd just like a letter sent to TIR, and that with one also sent to MLA Colton LeBlanc, requesting that they look at their snow removal policies and salting policies in the West Pubnico area after storms, and to please stress, that yes, it is a community that goes 24 hours a day. It does not stop. There's places going down towards the wharf that if you get a tractor trailer or whatever crossways the wharf, crossways the road, that you could have a major catastrophe of fire or anything ever broke out down there. It could wipe out God knows how many operations, and that, so, you have 100 boats, lobster boats with 3 and 4 men to a boat, or fishers to a boat. You got 300 or 400 vehicles down there, so yeah, they know it. So I guess maybe they should start thinking maybe a little earlier to send trucks down there and to get those roads cleared off, because they know it's a community that never sleeps. So anyway, I'd like to make a motion that the municipalities send a letter to TIR and CC it to Colton LeBlanc to look over the policies as far as snow removal and salting down in the West Pubnico area.
So I'll second that, and on the motion, thank you, Councillor Digdon. I was got stuck in the hospital while all this was going on, and when I left from Thursday afternoon and drove through the town of Yarmouth, the highway, Pubnico Head, when I hit West Pubnico, that's where there was still, the sun was out, there were still patches of snow, probably, this thick. It was like deplorable. It was like, yeah. Anyway.
Pitiful.
Okay. Have a motion. Any more comments or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded? Carried.
Thank you.
The next one is a letter that I received, and it's from the NDP caucus, and what it is NDP leader Gary Burrow would like to set up a meeting with the municipality of Argyle just to discuss, just listen to individuals and organizations in an effort to hear various perspectives and concerns. He's very interested in hearing your thoughts on Nova Scotia's current municipal landscape, and would look forward to meeting you at your convenience. And he would have let him know, and I guess what we'd be looking for here is just to direct staff to either set up a meeting or whenever is convenient for all. He says that he would like to come whenever we have a meeting, but sometimes these are better as a separate meeting, like we've had with other parties, for sure, rather than bring them to a meeting like this. So anyway, I guess what we need is, do we need a motion or just, or do we just need a consensus that he's
Make a
invited?
motion on that.
Need a motion on that?
Yeah, I'm not interested in that.
Huh?
You know, what did you engage in? I'm not interested. What they want to come into.
Everyone's gonna see if the kite's still floating.
So, do we need a motion? Or do we just, well, maybe we do. We wanna make sure council is okay.
Sounds like you may wanna know where council
Council-
lands on this
yes.
one. Yeah.
Tell us how you really feel.
That's how you really feel.
So, can we have a motion? If someone wants to make a motion to invite Leader Gary Burrow to come talk to council.
Tell me your lunch.
I won't be here. I'm busy.
If there's no motion, then there's no
Dropped.
discussion, there's no,
No.
Other than miscellaneous.
I don't think there's, no will in council to meet with him, so,
okay?
obviously not, so.
We move on. Correspondence, I'll just go through them, if there's any that you want to talk about or discuss, let me know. The first one is Municipal Affairs and Housing, MGA and Police Act. Hearing none. Argyle Municipal Firefighter Association minutes. The Bay Funday Sea Kayak Symposium Final Report for 2019 Bay Funday Sea Kayak Symposium. Internet for Nova Scotia update, and I think you pretty much covered that in your report. There's really nothing right now, and from what I read, until they have more interest or from different companies, then there's really nothing to update at this time. Mariner Center, November financial statement. The REN quarterly report. Ad campaign for compost education. I think that's important to have that, I'm telling you, with what we saw. You all saw the pictures of what goes into these green bins. My feeling is, education wouldn't help anybody who throws that in there, because I think people who do that know that that's not a compostable item, you know, and no matter how much education you're gonna have, but.
There's two incidents, this garbage pickup, that people are driving by, or neighbors, I don't know who it is, and I know two different places, one in West Pimlico and one East Pimlico. People are dropping off garbage bags with food or whatever and dumping it in the green bins, and the green bins are being rejected.
What?
They're doing it at someone else's place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's unreal.
For,
So now their garbage
course.
their green bin is rejected, and like
rejected.
they say, they have to wait another 2 weeks
And it's
before.
not their fault.
It's not their fault. Sorry.
Well, definitely, there's gotta be some kind of education out
I'll
there.
have to go
Well,
and kick.
I mean, it's, it's,
stupid.
Oh my gosh, that's exactly what I was thinking of. Pardon?
You think you'd say it?
you may as well say you can't think stupid, yeah.
well, we can hardly fix the chairs.
I concur.
I think they're on order. The only, on that point, just very quickly, if we continue to put major plastics in green bins, the residents of the municipality of Argyle are gonna be paying
They're
more.
gonna pay more, because we're gonna be charged more tipping fee.
The tipping fee will double.
We double for those loads
For
that
those-
they reject.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying, I mean, obviously, the ideal would be zero plastic. They do have processes in place to take some plastics out. it's not like they're just blindly, taking a compost through the system. I know that councillors Digdon and Bork would know firsthand what it looks like. Please find the video on
Yes.
council's dirty jobs phase 2. So but anyway, we did refresh that video thanks to staff who had picked it up. But I mean, if those plastics are going to get double billed, and that the taxpayers pay, there's no saying there's no saying it's not.
No.
As Councillor Digdon would say.
And it's pitiful, honestly.
It is.
Councillor Bork and I have been there, and there's tons and tons and tons of compost that they can't use because there's plastics in it.
Exactly.
It's hard to believe how big the area is and how many tons of compost that's in there. And no, I'm all for this ad campaign, something has to be done.
Yeah, and the, what we had at the Eastside Community Center, the education thing we had, that was, the people really liked it and they learned a lot. I mean, even had one person that says, what's a blue bag? It was, wow. Now they know what a blue bag is. So, one person less. So, anyway, I think we should have more of those education sessions.
Definitely.
There was a program on TV the other day, I don't know exactly where it was around this area, I think it was the Bay Fundy, of all the plastics that they, in just one area on the bottom of the ocean floor, and it was hard to believe. It was just mind-boggling that there's that much plastic in just a small area, maybe twice the size of this room. So how much more around,
Yeah, absolutely. You
a
can't-
shame,
Okay.
Okay.
I missed, I just put it down. Women's Winterlude ad for the Vanguard. And if I hear no more, there's no financial requests. Are there any agenda topics for next meeting? No motion by councillors.
If you'll permit me, if the topic that was raised by Councillor Digdon around the kilograms on major cleanups, if that's something that you want staff to bring some basic information back to this council on, this would be an appropriate place to do that.
Okay.
Also, I would just quickly note that the next meeting will try to bring you an update on the grants to organizations system that is being improved. We do have some more decisions that we need from council, including how we're going to deal with community hall requests. Now that we've essentially gone through all of the community halls and given them each 15,000, what is the next step? So we need some guidance on that as well. So that will come up. We don't need to make that a motion. I figured it was a good time to raise those two items.
Which
for
could
you.
be on the agenda for our next meeting.
I am hoping sincerely to have a request for you regarding the community halls and how we're gonna deal with that. And it will require some financial conversation, so it's appropriate for committee of the whole.
Okay.
And yes, I'd like that information, please, because the only thing I find, I'm all for that policy we passed tonight, but it just shows, somebody can leave, a bunch of garbage outside until somebody deems it unsightly, and then haul it to the dump, and there may not be no tipping fees. Where a person that wants to do it right, is doing a big construction job on their house or whatever, hauls it to the dump, anything after 220 kgs, they have to pay. So,
At our meeting, Glenn, tomorrow morning, I'll dig out what the waste park, how it works out, and I'll get back to what I found out on our end, and then.
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah.
Okay, next is question period. And I'm sure there's gonna be. And we have an in-camera session.
Yes, it should be fairly brief.
So do we want,
Should we have the poop truck in on that in camera also?
I can give an update on the legal aspect of that.
That's what I was.
so do we want to give, you guys have questions?
Awesome. Go for it.
So do we want to take a break
Yeah.
and have the questions and we can come back into our camera?
I'm gonna go put this in my car.
Well, what,